Well, I say we kick this thing off, boys.
Yeah, we're sitting here in Alaska with the one, the only, the infamous Tom fucking Evans.
Yes,
Here I am.
the man himself.
The man himself. Words barely describe how much it means to be able to spend time with Tom, and I'm sorry, Luke, that you missed out.
I'm so jealous.
But it's just been an immense pleasure to have him here, and
Thanks, man.
I've also apologized to Eric Clark and Miguel Perez because we have seen way more moose
Yeah.
and way more.
Quite a few. I think I've seen like 10 since I've been here, and we actually were driving back to your house yesterday, and we parked about 5 feet away from one.
Yeah.
And it was just sitting there chewing on bark and kissing at it, and it looked over at us. And
Yeah.
Well, Curtis now has yard moose.
Yeah, he met the yard moose.
I met them. I was halfway through my morning ritual, and he came and knocked on the door and was like, "Hey, pinch it off. Get out here. There's 2 moose outside." So I ran outside real quick and in like 10-degree weather with a t-shirt and shorts on and shoes half on, stood out there and looked at the moose for a few minutes. It was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah,
Very
pretty
cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
We've had unusually clear weather too. So the mountains have been out, and some really pretty sunsets and sunrises, and so yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Tom, it's we're now at this point 12, 13 episodes deep, and your name has come up many times, so our audience may be familiar with who you are by name, but could you just kind of give us a little bit of your background, like how you ended up joining the Army, and then how you kind of ended up into such a weird turn of events, ending up at Bravo Company 164, going to Afghanistan in 2012.
So I joined the Army in 2008. Prior to that, I was working as an EMT. I was doing 911 in New Jersey, all over the state. Starting to kind of get burnt out with the job. Wanted to do something different. Like I had said, my dad, like you guys know, my dad's a Vietnam vet. A lot of people in my family were in the military, be it Army, Air Force, Marines, whatever. So I kind of always wanted to do it. And I was in a position where I felt that it was a good time in my life. I was 20 years old, didn't have too much going on besides, my EMS stuff, and wanted to change. So I went to the recruiter's office and told them I wanted to be infantry and I wanted to leave as soon as possible. They told me that infantry wasn't available immediately. I would have had to wait about 6-7 months to go to basic training. So they wanted me to go into delayed entry program, and I was kind of nervous about that. Thought maybe, well, if I do the delayed entry program, I might change my mind. Yeah, I might change my mind. I might be like, or get that, because I had been applying for fire jobs. I had just applied for FDNY, fire department in New York, in New York City, to do EMS for them, and I was getting hired. I was in the process of starting to work for them, but the pay was kind of bad. And I just ended up doing that instead. So who knows? I could have been a firefighter in New York instead of sitting here right now. But anyway, so I went to the recruiter's office. They said there was the delayed entry program. I wasn't interested. So they're like, oh, well, why don't you do 18 X-ray? You can be special forces and be cool and, eat snakes and run around in civilian clothes with a beard and do cool guy stuff and whatever. And I was like, oh, that would be cool. So he kind of, and at the same time, he told me, he's like, well, if you do that, you can leave in 3 weeks. You don't have to wait 6 months. And he's like, and at the end of the day, if you don't want to do special forces, you're going through infantry training. So they're going to make you infantry anyway.
Right.
I was like, cool, win-win.
Yeah. And
so joined in, was it December of 2008, left like right after New Year's in January 2009. Went to Benning, got through OSIT. At OSIT, from there we went to airborne hold, waiting to go to airborne school. And while I was waiting to go to airborne school, they got us all together and they said, hey, we know some of you guys, you've been doing the infantry thing for the past, was it, I forget, 14 weeks.
Sure. Yeah.
So some guys just want to be infantry and they like that and they want to do it. And that's fine. And to be honest with you, like a very small percentage of you are going to make it anyway.
Yeah.
So, here's your opportunity. If this is what you want, you'll still go to airborne school and you'll probably go to Bragg, Campbell, or Alaska or Hawaii. And I was like, awesome. Sounds great. Like one of the biggest things I always want to do is airborne school. So I was like, this is perfect, and I'll go to Bragg, which is a base, I kind of wanted to go to because it was somewhat close to home, still on the East Coast, and
you didn't know any better.
Didn't know any better at the time. So I did it. And the day before airborne hold, they came into the barracks and we're like, hey, all those guys that raised their hands, come with us. We were like, okay. So they brought us into the little office near airborne hold. And they were like, all right, well, bad news. You guys aren't going to airborne school. You, and me, you're going to Fort Stewart. And I was like, where's Fort Stewart? And they were like, Savannah, Georgia. And I was like, God damn it. Because I was just so excited to get out of Georgia. I was like, I'm almost done. I'm going to get out of the South. I'm going to go somewhere cool and right across the state.
Yeah.
And so I like to tell people that's how I went from getting got the big green weenie and started getting the blue and white striped one.
Yeah.
So
the ubiquitous Marne missile.
The Marne missile. So got the Stewart. Let's see. I was, airborne, was in reception and got sent to 2-7 infantry. So I was in 2-7 infantry prior to coming to you guys.
Where you got your deployment to Iraq in?
Yeah. So, I did that. I was there for about 4 or 5 months, and we deployed to Iraq. Went to Iraq as a saw gunner. We were in Baghdad province for the whole deployment. We bounced around the province. I was at JSS War Eagle for about 5 months. Then we spent about 3 to 4 weeks at I forget which base it was, but it was the BIOP complex, the airport complex. So Victory or Liberty or one of those bases. I forget which one. It's been a while. Only there very briefly. And then from there we went to Nasir wa Salam. It's another JSS. It was like right down the road from Abu Ghraib. So, did that deployment from, December till 2009 till December 2010.
Our military careers are almost like exactly aligned in terms of timing. I got joined in November of 2008. Yeah. It deployed in October of 2009, and it's
weird. Pretty, because I think the brigades were only offset by like a month or two.
Yeah.
It seemed like they would just want to have like that one brigade back while everyone else is downrange, and then keep cycling through. Because I remember hearing about you guys up in Mosul, and we heard about the one tick you guys had up there for that deployment, and I heard that kind of gassed us up because we were like, oh man, we're going to the shit, and it's going to be crazy. And then we also had a bunch of, so the way it worked for me was I got attached. They took my squad, split us in half, and they put half of us with tankers, and the other half they reattached to a different company. It was kind of strange how they did it. But I was with a bunch of tankers, and all the tankers were OF1 vets, and they've been to Iraq like 6 million times, and they were just like, it was the first time they were going back to Baghdad since the invasion. So they were like gassing us up, like it's gonna be crazy. And then we heard about your guys tick, and they were just like, it's gonna be nuts. And show up, and then it's just like, well, and it's pretty much like we were like cops for like a year. We just drove around, and we did a few like counter IED things, and we did kick like 1 or 2 doors, but it wasn't like, it was mainly we're doing it with the Iraqi army guys, the IAA or the IP, Iraqi army, Iraqi police. But it was very uneventful deployment. Just a few IEDs.
So I think your deployment was what's interesting about your deployment to Iraq versus mine is that you got your CIB.
So that's kind of it's an embarrassing story.
Please continue to tell us so that we can further the narrative of the people that are in denial that people don't get bullshit CIBs.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they do.
Yeah.
Here's
I will be
example.
the first one to attest to it, because I, Thomas William Evans, Sergeant retired U.S. Army, have a bullshit CIB. So the way I got my CIB was those 3 or 4 weeks we were at the BIOP complex, whatever, as I said, Victory, Liberty, I don't remember which one. We were ripping in with a new unit, but it was kind of unique because we ripped in then, and then we ripped in like a month later, because we were taking over a battalion-size AO with a company. Because this is when Iraq was down. I mean, this is when Iraq was downsizing. They were closing all the JSSs and the COPs and trying to keep it, get it as small as possible. Reduce our footprint in the country.
Sure.
So we were ripping in with, I believe it was Second ID, and we were driving around the Iron Triangle, which is a pretty notorious area of IEDs in Iraq. They call it that because it's just. It's a nightmare for the 88 mics, driving your shrimp scampi up the highway, because they're always getting hit by IEDs constantly.
Yeah.
So they were showing us the area, and as we were going through one, I forget what road it was. I don't know if it was. It doesn't matter, but major road in Iraq in the Iron Triangle, and an EFP went off on our convoy. So it didn't hit my truck, but it hit the truck in front of me. Very lightly wounded the gunner, but other than that, everybody was fine. Like, he was good. He wasn't messed up bad whatsoever. Just like a few like nicks and stuff here. I think he had a little chunk out of his leg or something. It was very minor. And then as soon as that went off, they sprayed probably 3 or 4 rounds, probably just over a wall, guess firing.
Blind firing.
Yeah, whatever. And that was it. And we came back.
Got shot at.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't even think they were shooting at it. I mean, in all reality, I mean, whoever's been to Iraq, Luke, you hear gunshots all the time because it's a big area. They're cities, they're major cities. So you might just have someone going outside, shoot a gun, or you might have a Iraqi police guy accidentally squeezing the trigger on his AK, So who knows? Because I didn't hear cracks. I didn't hear whizzes.
So what you're telling me is that I got shortchanged because when I was on gate guard in Mosul, a rocket landed 300 meters away, and I didn't get my CIB.
Captain Kitchen got his for...
I'm actually gonna have him retrofit it for me.
Yeah. I was going to replace that awesome firefight where you were literally just traded rounds with the enemy at point blank range. But let's substitute that for a mortar.
But it's funny because it says, I think the reason why they did it for us was because our company commander was out with us, and he had his CIB already. But I think he was trying to hook up his guys.
Yeah.
Which I get it. At least he was trying to, because I mean, at the end of the day, he had his CIB.
Yeah.
Super squared away dude. So
if you hadn't gotten it that day, you wouldn't gotten it on the deployment.
No.
Right.
Yeah. No. But I also thought it was unfair because you have guys like Pifer and Morales, who also have did our Afghanistan deployment with us. They were at this JSS called Istiqlal, and they got rocketed and mortared, dude, every day, and not outside the wire, in the wire. Mm-hmm. They were running to the bunkers constantly, every night they were getting hit, and they didn't get anything. Nothing, which I feel that was way more deserving than mine. I'm in a convoy and the convoy gets hit by an EFP.
Right.
And it's, it is, I guess, by definition, you took, because right on my CIB, it says engaged by hostile, forces in Iraq, something Al-Qaeda, something, whatever, and it's by an EFP, an explosively forward penetrating device. And it's just you look at it and you're like, oh, and then, especially going to the Afghanistan deployment and doing some of your guys' CIBs. I know I did Pifer's when he got his. I did the paperwork for it, and it was engaged by hostile forces and returned fire in Panjwai, Afghanistan against the Taliban. And it's oh, that's cool. And mine's just oh.
Well, I remember being a little bit embittered that I didn't get mine in Iraq, but little did I know I would earn them. I would earn it.
It was
tenfold.
Coming.
Yeah, and it's crazy too how people get so they're so upset, and it's that was my chance and I missed it, and you think you'll never get it, and then when you start getting it, when you first get it, you're excited, and then when you keep getting it every day for 7 months, you're like, yeah, I'm over this. I'm good.
Well, I know. It was kind of funny because when we deployed to Iraq, you remember an NTC. Well, actually, never mind. I forgot you weren't with the unit yet. Oh yeah, you were, weren't you? Yeah, they kind of come to Jesus moment, and I talked about this in the first episode.
Yeah,
but when we deployed to Iraq, we had a similar talk in NTC, but it was the opposite end of the spectrum. It wasn't we're going into the shit and people are gonna get fucked up and that kind of thing. It was well, guys, hate to tell you, but you're probably not gonna get your CIBs. And so it was just oh man, because everybody obviously wants to get into the shit. unbeknowingly
point,
and through a healthy dose of naivety.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, because you meet people that like I even met a guy after I got out, and I was taking a fire class in San Diego, like a fire academy class, and I did kind of feel bad in some ways. So he was 11 Bravo. He was in for 3 years, but he got stationed at Fort Irwin. So he got stationed at NTC. So, you know, for someone, I feel like, you know, if you did combat deployments and then you went to NTC, that would probably be pretty fun, you know, dressing up in black pajamas and running around the desert, because it's beautiful out there. It is a beautiful area. It's nice not beautiful when you're training in it, but, you know, it's like I recently just went on a camping trip out that way. And it was amazing. But anyway, but it would seem like a cool thing to do, you know, when you get back after, you know, having such a high op tempo like they had over the past, you know, 15 years of deployments for GWAT.
Sure.
It'd be a cool vacation, but for him, it was just, you know, well, that was my chance. You know, this is terrible. I'm not re-enlisting, and that was it. So, but he was jealous because we would talk and stuff, and he'd be like, "Oh, like," because I found out he was infantry, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool, man. Like, where we at?" Told me, and then he asked me, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh, and man, I wish I got to deploy," and this and that, which I understand, because I had that feeling after Iraq, you know, about the whole CIB thing. But at the same time, like you said, I think it's almost a little bit of that naivety where it's like, you know, careful what you wish for, you know. And
the thing is, like, it's almost cliche for the seasoned guys that actually have legit CIBs to be like, yeah, he's like, man, you know, it's just a word. It's like you don't really want it, like, you know, like you think you want it till you get it. Yeah, and then you go and you actually get into the shit, and it's like, yeah, you know, there's some truth to that. I mean, there's some truth to wanting it and being proud of it. Like, I'm proud of mine, absolutely, to be honest with you. But that's because I feel like I earned it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm absolutely proud of mine too, even though.
Yeah. But it's like, but I also like wouldn't wish it on. I understand like not wishing it on the next generation of guys too, you know? So, but, so you were in 2-7 infantry this entire time, but then you got word you were coming down to Bravo Company. So how did that pan out for you?
So how that worked out was I got back from that deployment. Was back for a while. I was in a team leader role as a specialist, and sent me to the promotion board. Got my P status, my promotable status, and was out in the field. Was actually the squad leader at the time, because my squad leader was gone at some school or something. He wasn't around. I forget what the reason was. So they had me as the squad leader on table 12 gunnery for the infantry side, the dismount side. So we were entering and clearing a trench while the Bradleys, you know, were shooting their targets, whatever. So we did that. You know, we went through our iteration, and we did really well. You know, especially for, you know, having no NCOs in our platoon and 3 new privates, like, we did very well. And, you know, Sergeant Major came up to me and he was like, "Oh, you guys did awesome. You did better than, you know, all the other squads and this and that." And like, little did I know, he was kind of like,
he's buttering you up a
little bit. Yeah. And you know, I'm just eating it up like, oh, like, awesome, you know, because at the time I had a few people overhead that were not very, they didn't really deliver the praise or reward when people earned it. So it was kind of nice to hear every once in a while. And it was just funny because I didn't realize he was buttering me up. And so shortly after that, my platoon sergeant came over to me and he's like, "Hey, Evans, let me talk to you." And we had a very good relationship. Awesome platoon sergeant, really good dude. This guy, Sergeant Anderson. And he was like, "Hey, Evans," he's like, "I got good news and bad news." He's like, "What do you want to hear first?" And I'm like, how about the bad news? You know, everybody wants to hear the bad news first, get it out of the way. And he was like, "Bad news is you're leaving the field." I was like, "That's bad? Like, how's that bad? What's the good news?" And he was like, "Good news is you're going to Afghanistan 3 weeks with 2nd Brigade." I was like, "What?" I'm like, and I was kind of like almost shocked. I was like 3 weeks? Like, how are we just like finding out now? And are we going to get leave? Like, are we going to get a weekend or like some of these dudes are married, you know, and some of these dudes have kids. Like, and like me at the time, I was dating someone for years and I was like, "Oh, great." And so I was like, okay. And shortly after that, the sergeant major had come back and, you know, he was like, "You know, Sergeant Anderson told you? And I was like, yeah, Sergeant Major. And he's like, don't worry. He's like, we're going to take care of you and make sure you keep your team leader role. I was like, oh, cool. And I'm thinking, because about a month before, somebody had gotten frocked to E5. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe he's going to, I had my P status. We had talked about it earlier. My S shop had messed up my points, so I missed my window and had a, pretty much missed my window opportunity.
So you were E4 promotable at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I had to wait a very long time to get promoted because the S shop had messed my points up.
Shocker.
And then the points shot up to, what was it? I think it's like 795 or something.
Yeah,
it was like the max.
all of a sudden.
Yeah, it just, because they filled all the E5 spots when it was like 300. You know, so anyway, so I'm thinking, oh, cool. He's going to hook me up. He's going to promote me. So he calls me up in front of the formation and we're all standing there. And he's like, you always see specialists and then you see sergeants. And then as soon as he said that, I was like, he's going to make me a corporal, this asshole. And then that's what he did. Just came down and he's like, but you never see corporals. And I was like, oh, man. But I'm staying at parade rest, I'm just like, but in my head, I'm like, shit. Like, man, because my original team leader in the Army was a corporal. And I saw the way that they used him.
Corporals get
yeah, it's like, you're good enough for CQ and staff duty every week, but you're not good enough for like the cool responsibility because you're just a corporal.
Right.
And then you also don't really get the respect because then like, people look at you like, oh, you're just a fancy specialist. And it's,
you're not Corporal Evans, you're still just Evans, right?
Yeah, like I had a hard time going to the supply cage because I go to the supply cage and I asked the supply NCO for equipment and he's like, you need to send a team leader over here, a sergeant. I'm like, well, I am a team leader, I'm just a corporal, But yeah, so they do that. They let us out of the field. They gave us like 2 days off before we came to you guys. Just to kind
wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, at least they did that.
2 days, man.
Could have been worse. Like, so they gave us like 2 days and kind of let us reset from the field a little bit, and then they sent us over to 164. We ran the lanes with you. You were there, Grace, and a couple other people from our platoon were there. Some new privates that had come in for basic.
This is while we were in NTC.
Yeah, while you guys were. I think you guys were just coming back. You might have just came back. I think you came back a week into it, the lane that we were doing. The lane was like a week and a half, I believe, if I remember correctly, maybe 2 weeks. But yeah, so you guys came back and I remember showing up to the company and like, to be honest, I was kind of nervous because, here we are, here's our squad leader who's supposed to come with us on the deployment, has some family stuff or something and he couldn't show up. He couldn't deploy with us on time. He was going to deploy later, if at all, because he was having a kid or I forget what the reason was. So it was just us, and we were kind of nervous because it's here I am, a corporal, and I'm the highest ranking person in the squad, and like what power do I have to look out for my dude's best interest? Like what power do I really have to like try and tell anyone what's going to happen with my guys? So I was kind of worried about it, and you're also showing up to a unit where no one knows you, and you think like no one's going to watch out for us, no one's going to watch our back. They're worried about their own friends, which I understand because I've been in that situation on the opposite end too. But thankfully, it all ended up working out, and we got Sergeant Morgan as our squad leader. They gave us a new squad leader because ours wasn't coming immediately. Yeah, we could not have been luckier. He is like one of the greatest leaders I ever had in the Army. It's super smart dude, but he took like no shit. No matter what rank you were, he didn't care. He would let you know what was up.
Very experienced guy. Had a lot of experience under his belt.
Tons of deployments, tons of schools, tons of great training opportunities, and he taught me more, I think, in 3-4 months than I learned almost the entire time I was in the Army. He taught me so much. Great guy. Saw him a few months ago. I had a few beers with him. Slept on my couch. But
yeah, I always wished he was over in first platoon. We could have used him.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Well, I mean, he was in first platoon.
He was, yeah.
For like
I guess
week.
that's true.
He was like your guy's black sheep too, because he got moved over to us, and we were like the black sheep.
Black sheep squad, which
black
is
sheep squad.
A good segue because if our listeners have been very observant, they'll notice there's a portion of these stories that have a very different makeup of people. Mm-hmm. And that's because over the course of the deployment, we started pulling people from the district center to fill roles on our squads as they opened up for various reasons. You were not with us at Sperwan Ghar for the first 2-3 months of the deployment.
No.
What were you doing? What were you doing?
So once they got our squad together, deployed everybody, we came to Sperwan Ghar originally. So we were with you guys for the first, I think it was like a week or so, 2.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then, word came down like, we're going to end up sending a squad to the district center. And like, we kind of knew, we're like, well, they don't really hold any loyalty towards us. We're the new guys, we're not, we're probably going to go. Like, we're going to the district center. And then when they told us what the mission was, I was also kind of bummed because it's kind of the same thing I did the first deployment. It was a lot of PSD, personal security detachment for some kind of reconstructive team for the country, and I wanted more of a kinetic deployment, and I was kind of I wanted to get more of the infantry experience, and I was kind of worried I was going to lose that opportunity. So they ended up picking us to go to the district center, and we get over there, and we go to the main building, and we're talking to them, and we notice like there's not a lot of sleeping quarters here. We're like, how are we going to fit a squad in here? They're like, oh, let me show you where you guys are staying. And they brought us over to the Afghan police compound. There was a door. Remember the door in the corner of the district center? And then you open the door and you go in, and there's like that little compound back there. And they had like 3 trailers back there, and they just kind of loaded us up in the trailers. But it was pretty funny because we had the little door, and inside it was like a medieval, what do they call that thing? Like the wood you put down and you slide in the door, and they can't kick the door in. Like they had the battering ram hit the door.
I forgot about the old latch thing.
Yeah. Super ghetto. And then we had sandbags like stacked up all over the door.
Yeah.
But yeah, it ended up being a pretty interesting experience. So I got there and we ripped in with the unit. We did a few missions, and one of the guys, if you notice when you first walk in, on the right of the door was an aid, like a aid equipment, like medical equipment cache.
Right.
And what that was there was an aid station back there for the Afghan police. So one of the first things they asked us when we got there is like, so who's your guys' medic? And we're like, well, we don't have a medic. The PSD team has a medic, but back here we don't have one. And he was like, oh, so they didn't tell you guys? And we're like, no. And he was like, well, you're going to be running the aid station for the Afghan police. And that was kind of a shocker because I was like, oh, that seems like a lot. But, I used to work as an EMT, and I worked 911 for a few years, and figured, oh, I think I could do a little bit, but I kind of need some help. But I'm not really getting much help. And I ran while we were at the district center, I ran the Afghan police aid station for about 3 months. So in between doing missions, going out on patrols with not patrols, but I would say more like meetings with the SFAT team, the Security Forces Assistance Team at the district center. I'd go out missions with them, but the way it would work was either I had to stay back or the medic had to stay back.
The 18 Delta.
No. This is a regular Army medic guy.
Okay.
Super cool dude. This guy, Sergeant Eddie. Super dialed medic. Super funny, awesome dude. He used to like barbecue and stuff for us all the time. Real good. Real cool guy. Had a lot of experience under his belt. He was an E6 medic, so which is hard to get to.
Yeah, it's unusual. By then they're usually stuck in a hospital.
Yeah. If you're not dialed, it's hard to get to E6 medic. Like super good dude. Then we also had the 18 Delta next door.
And that's, not to interrupt you, but a key component of when we talk about the district center a lot. That is where the special forces team was. Yeah, that's where their compound was. Yeah. It was just kind of off to the side of the district center,
20 feet away from us.
Yeah,
they just had their own spot.
Right. Yeah, they just had their own spot. So a lot of times you'll hear us talk about ODA and district center interchangeably. That's just because that particular special forces team, that is where their compound was. And I mentioned 18 Delta. 18 Delta is a special forces medic. Yeah. And it's a medic that's trained to like the level like a physician's assistant. Like they spend like 2 years and they do rotations through like New York City hospitals and like they're extremely competent medics.
Very,
like 10
very
times more
much
competent than any other armed forces medic, except maybe like tier 1 units or something like that.
Leaps and bounds.
So to have him as an asset nearby was, basically the same as like having like a doctor next door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it was a nice asset to have too, because he was literally only like a phone call away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were a few times, we run the aid station, and like I said, so I was saying, either me or Sergeant Anetti had to stay back,
right?
Because we always had to have someone somewhat trained
to respond.
So Nanetti had gone over a lot of things with me. I had like the basic CLS knowledge, but he got a little more in depth with it. I had the basic trauma care knowledge from doing EMS for 2.5 years in Jersey. But he taught me how to intubate people. He taught me how to use some of the drugs and stuff like that. So some of the pain medications. Show me just good ways to start, treat gunshot wounds and sucking chest wounds, darting people, doing the needle chest decompressions and stuff. So I did that quite a bit, which is way out of my scope of practice legally in the United States, but Afghanistan doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All that matters is somebody showed you how to do it, so you can now do it. You are blessed by
Right.
the U.S. Army.
The thing about that position and being in that position is like you weren't seeing combat really. But you were
but I was seeing
the ass end of combat.
Yeah, I was seeing the result of combat. So
yeah, a whole lot more than we were. Like if we fuck somebody up, we never saw them. They were 100 meters away. Yeah. But if we fuck somebody up and they were still breathing, or maybe not breathing, they'd throw them in a wheelbarrow, put them in the back of one of those little tricycle motorcycle things, and drive them to the district center.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it worked.
It's a lot of carnage.
And it's crazy because it's not like in the civilian side where I hear the tones drop and it's like 25158, please respond to 123 Main Street for stabbing. It was just like you hear a car pull up, then you hear a bunch of Afghan police going ape shit, like yelling and screaming, and you just crack the door, and then you see it, and you'll see them bringing the people in.
And it was like a combination of civilians, Afghan military, Afghan police, Taliban.
Yeah. Yeah, I treated like a very wide range of people, mostly Afghan police.
Yeah.
Because they had so many of them there. They would get shot at or take casualties, and I'd go out there and treat them. We had one day, I was back there by myself. It was just me. The medic had gone out on a mission with a bunch of the other dudes. I think I had like one or two dudes from our team were in the living area. And I hear a truck pull up and just yelling and screaming, and so I knew like something was happening. So I went out there, opened the door, and see this pickup truck. And in the back of the pickup truck, there's two Afghans, and one of them is like he's split wide open, guts hanging out everywhere, and the other guy is double amp, right below his hips, like very high up. His genitals were pretty mangled, and he had a lot of damage to his pelvis. So I just looked at that like them, and I was just like shit, I can't. There's no way I can do this by myself. It's too much. So I had to call over to the 18 Delta to come over, and he came over to help me. So he took the guy with the guts hanging out. I took the guy at the double amp, and so it's pretty bad. He was ruptured up into his pelvis. So his pee and poo's coming out and blood while I'm trying to stop it bleeding. So I'm like gagging while I'm treating this guy.
Yeah.
Dry heaving. And the 18 Delta though is laughing at me because he's like, because he's seen it all, and he's seeing me have this like physical reaction, like, while I'm doing it. And he's just so everyone's clear too, these were Taliban guys that we're laughing about.
Yeah.
This isn't Afghan civilians or police. These are straight Taliban dudes. They were planning an IED and they stepped on their own IED.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, just dang.
Yeah.
So
laughs a bitch.
We're not talking poorly about our Afghan counterparts or anyone here. But it was a lot of that, and we also got, Afghan civilians too, unfortunately. Like we had kids that we treated, kids that stepped on IEDs,
and that's how you became a TV star.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, my 15 seconds of fame.
15 seconds of fame on National Geographic.
Me and Sean McCaffrey.
I missed this story.
Yeah, so they did that TV show
Inside Combat Rescue.
Yeah, about the PJs. And if you watch that show, you see a lot of people from 164. You see Holt. You see a bunch of dudes from Kenjikak. And then a few dudes from Panjwai too. And
Those are the guys. It wasn't that particular aircraft, or it might have been that particular aircraft. They just
It was
didn't
like
film
two.
it. But it was the same unit that picked Clark up.
Yeah, it was the same unit that picked Clark up. So yeah, we were a kid. They brought a kid in, and he had stepped on pressure plate IED that got planted out in his family's like farm. So like terrible. Poor kid, man. He's like probably like 11.
Yeah.
And it's not like the United States where you get an amputee. You could live somewhat of a normal life. You have your problems. How we know with a lot of our guys, amputees, they still have surgeries and everything. But like, you're here. But a kid in Afghanistan, it's like what quality of healthcare or care you're going to get after,
right?
And what kind of life are you going to have when you're a dirt farmer in Panjwai?
Especially in Panjwai. I mean,
so,
you can't roll a wheelchair. I'm pretty sure the houses there aren't ADA accessible.
Yeah, exactly. So we
that was kind of a common sight, was seeing like kids walking around with missing legs, or
and
with a missing leg or an arm or something like that, like
on some homemade
kids.
Wooden crutch.
Like just hobbling around.
Yeah,
that was a
shame,
normal
dude.
thing to see.
It's sad, man. Sad for that. I feel bad for those kids.
Yeah.
But so we helicopter landed from Inside Combat Rescue. I think it's like episode 6. It's like Fog of War. It's dramatic and whatnot. I think that's why they called it that, because it was a kid.
Yeah.
And you can see them coming in, landing, and they film the district center coming in, and you see it, and they land, and you see me and McCaffrey and 2 of the guys from the district center carrying this kid up, and then you see Sergeant Nanetti, the medic, too, giving his hand off, telling him what's up to the medic. And then you see us again for like 2 seconds, and then you see my pirate flag tattoo, my identifying feature, because I'm in a secondary t-shirt.
Because you weren't wearing your top.
No.
Did you get in trouble for that? No. Not even 3 years later. There wasn't a sergeant major. It's like, hey.
Yeah.
Identify that soldier.
Yeah. AR 670-1 violation. Yeah.
Making
but shit. I mean, my boss was a colonel too, and like he was. I mean, they were cool. They kind of let us do our thing. They knew that we were not part of them. We were just there to provide kind of like a service.
Sure.
So like the extent of our relationship with them is them coming down and be like, hey, to Sergeant Morgan, hey, we're going to do this mission. We need you guys to plan our route and plan security for us. Cool. Yeah. And that was it. That was kind of our relationship with them. But we were all good. We were cool. I still talk to some of them today.
So those advisors that you were escorting on those missions, were they infantrymen or were they?
No, they were. Some of them were Cap Scouts, and a lot of them were from the reserves.
Okay.
That got activated. So like the colonel was from the reserves. There was a master sergeant from the reserves from New Jersey, actually kind of near where I grew up at.
So they kind of modeled it after what eventually would become like the SFAB, the Security Force Advising Brigade.
Yeah, that was like kind of one of the precursors to that. And I think when they started doing that, they wanted to make it a more full-time professional force because it was so needed in every district of every area.
Doing it all over.
Yeah.
So while you were at the district center, what were you hearing about Sperwan Ghar? Like, I know because I'm sure you guys were hearing what was going on.
Oh yeah, so we were hearing a lot, and hearing what was going on, and like we didn't really know anyone, because like we didn't know you guys at the time. Yeah. But we could see Sergeant Morgan getting like really upset because this guy was getting hurt, that guy was getting hurt, this person was having problems, and he was really upset that he wasn't there. And we were too, to a point, but he had a lot of fierce loyalty to the company, not the company itself, but the guys in the company,
Yeah.
And so you would see him, and I remember when one of the guys stepped on IED, he was devastated, dude, devastated. And I think that was what spurred him to really start pushing to go back. And he did, and he was there with us for about 2.5 months, and then he got pulled back to Sperwan Ghar, and I told him before he left, I was like, hey, if they need a team leader, let me know. Like I'll be that guy. If they need someone, like I'll go. And I know like Pfeiffer wants to go. I know Morales wants to go for a fact. I know McCaffrey wants to go for a fact. So like, and if I go, like I'm gonna try and take these guys with me, So about 2 weeks goes by, and I get the phone call up at the office, pretty much in the district center, like, hey, you're coming over, And I was like, cool. I was like, thanks, Sergeant Martin. I appreciate it. And he's like, careful what you wish for. Careful what you wish for. And like, man, those words always stuck with me when he said that to me. And man, he was right.
He was right. Yeah.
He was right. Because here I am all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, amped up, finally get to do real infantry deployment, not like playing a cop or a bodyguard. I get to do something. And little did I know the reality of the situation over there. And it was, so yeah, I ended up going over there. You guys came to pick me up. I think Clark was in the truck that picked me up.
I know I was there.
Yeah,
I remember picking you guys up. Because we put you guys in the Max Pro, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we loaded up all our stuff in the back of the Max Pro and off to Sperwan Ghar we went.
You and McCaffrey and Pfeiffer.
And that was it. Morales came later. I think Morales came like 3 weeks later.
And then McCaffrey Morales went third.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, McCaffrey Morales came third platoon, and then Pfeiffer and I were first platoon.
Yep. Cool.
And now it wasn't...
Because at that point in the deployment, like we were losing guys to varying reasons, mental attrition, wounds, physical attrition. I mean, it was just a combination of a lot of things. So like our platoon was starting to get some serious holes in it that needed patching. So the timing on you guys getting there was really necessary for us.
That's what we had done. We replaced a few guys that were they were like, they're done. They need a break, and understandably so. It was tough deployment.
Well, it was lucky for us to have devices like a squad at the district center and the mayor's cell to rotate some people that weren't quite doing okay.
Yeah,
and it was a way they could still do their part and and do better.
Absolutely, yeah.
In the district center especially, because it kind of got you off Sperwan Ghar. It got you into a different situation where you're doing a much lower risk mission.
Yeah.
And you're not having to deal with, I'm sure some of the guys that were on Mayor's Cell, had probably dealt with some of the guilt of watching guys go on and off the COP on missions, and they couldn't do it.
It's hard. Yeah, it's a hard situation for them to be in.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you showed up, and I want to say it was June?
Yeah, it was June. It's like the end
of June.
End of June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was a portion of the point where we kind of had this weird lull.
Yeah.
Because they had been ramping up for weeks. Where it was Luxmore, it was the engineers. We had the big clearing mission. We had all this stuff happen. And at that time, we were like, "Oh my God! If this keeps happening, if this doesn't slow down, like we're gonna all die."
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it did. It kind of slowed down, not dramatically.
Yeah.
But at least it wasn't like we weren't losing. Like we didn't have like KIA every week for 3 weeks, which is what was happening for a brief period of time. And so it finally slowed down, and you guys showed up right around when Ramadan started.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you had heard about Ramadan, but we had heard conflicting things.
Yeah.
On one hand, I had heard they fight real hard during Ramadan. It's crazy. We're going to get messed up. And then I also heard at the same time from different people, Ramadan's chill because they don't fight during Ramadan. It's like truce period. Everyone kind of chills and hangs out. Nothing happens. We don't even go out because we're not allowed to. Well, all of that was false.
Yeah.
Like it was all a lie. It was not better. It was not worse. It was different because of the restrictions we had with our partnered forces.
Yeah. And I also think it made maybe the Taliban a little angrier because, I mean, who doesn't get hangry?
Right.
And you can't eat all day. And, and you're pretty much
there was
skin and bones in the
that
first place.
Lull where you guys came down, but then it picked right back up and it didn't let off. Like Ramadan didn't mean shit.
It seems like at the beginning of Ramadan, we were kind of like pushing our limits to see what we could get away with.
Yeah.
In terms of like getting the locals to go on patrol with us. And I think we kind of, I'm talking on my ass here, but it sounds like we kind of like resorted ourselves. Like we could just get like 2 or 3 of them to go. We'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'd trick 2 or 3 of them to go out. It was harder to get the ANA to go out during that time, but we could always, I don't know, maybe we just had like pockets of hash that we were throwing at the ALP or something to get them to go on a mission with us. But they would go and we would just be like, all right, well, here we go. Let's go. We'll be back before 10.
we would get that window. Yeah, that was when we would go to the LP checkpoint and be like, give us a couple of dudes. And the commander would be like, send out the Cha boys. They'll go with you.
Yeah.
You know, so you get some like 14-year-old kid with an AK out
like
there
the shit bag.
shitless.
Yeah. Or the shit bags. Like, we'll send them out.
Yeah, or the shit bags. Yeah. Which led us into some bad positions, bad spots. That
did.
practice did.
Times.
Yeah. Because Hulk got there a few days before you did, but the Afghans we had with us on that mission, which we talked about in Kohler's episode, I mean, they were worthless. They didn't, you know. I mean, I appreciate his effort to try to talk them up and make them think they were the lions of Kandahar. But you know, they were teenage kids. They didn't want to be there. They didn't really contribute anything one way or the other.
No, most of them weren't from there.
No,
Like,
yeah.
I don't think any of them were really from the area.
Well, the ALP were.
The ALP.
Yeah, ALP were, but
the Army guys.
no, they were from a different province altogether.
So they had no loyalty to fixing that province because, I mean, it's a tribal country. They have no national identity.
Yeah.
It's all about what province, what tribe you're from, what area you're from, what elder do you fall under.
Which I thought was a mistake to do that way. I know why they did it. They didn't want like as much corruption.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, hey, I'm going to cover for my buddy Habib. But I saw in other parts of the country where like localized, like in Coast, the Coast Provincial Force, which is the ANA and Coast, they're all from Coast, and they're like,
yeah, because they care.
They care.
That's where they're from.
Yeah,
you know, that's their.
Well, I think
town.
to paint a picture for like people who aren't as familiar with how Afghanistan tribal politics work, it's not like somebody from California going to New York and fighting for fellow New Yorkers or whatever. Like they would do that. It would be like somebody from Nebraska going to Latvia and fighting off the Russians.
Yeah,
you know, and like you're not going to give a shit what happens in Latvia if you're from the middle of America. So then the cultural differences were that drastic and that dramatic between the guys from northeastern and north central Afghanistan and the area we were in.
Or even if you go back as recently as like Native American culture.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't find participants of one tribe going to, hey, I'm going to walk around Sioux territory and, you know, and help the Sioux with their No, I mean, it wasn't, you know, you did your thing here and they did their thing there. And especially, you know, when you talk like Pashto and how familial those lines are. I mean, that'll be a topic for another episode for sure.
That
Chris
one needs more
Persons will have
research
some
and sincerity given to it.
Yeah, and Chris Persons will have some really good insight for that, and I'm excited to have him on here soon.
For sure.
But you got the opportunity to really earn your CIB.
I did. Yeah.
Once you got to us, or at least have the experience to justify wearing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I never wore it before. I never wore it. The only time I wore it was when I went to 164 for the first time. I put it on
for clout
for a little bit because I was new and I didn't want to. You know what I mean? I wanted a little bit of leeway with what what I wanted for my dudes.
Probably a good idia.
Yeah, it was like kind of a cover your ass thing. You know, I was like, oh, this might help a little bit.
Which I'm sure it did.
I'm sure it did. Little did they know it's bullshit. But all they saw
most of the ones in 164 were bullshit too.
Yeah.
I'm sure I wasn't
for like E6 and above.
I probably wasn't the only one.
No, and that's the thing. Like you look around a crowd, especially in, you know, as the Army got towards the end of its thing, like you look around, you're like, okay, you know. They almost should have like broken the War on Terror up into pieces and start giving like second stars for CIBs. Then you'd really know if people had earned them if they'd earned like 2 or 3.
Exactly.
You know?
Which I always thought was weird that they didn't do that between Iraq and Afghanistan. Because it's GWAT, but also at the same time they don't give you a CIB if you go to Syria. Or if you go to where is it, Niger? Yeah. If you have one from Afghanistan, that's just very strange.
It's all considered part of the war.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah. I disagree with that. I think that would be a good way to like visually recognize, like, okay, like, you know, you only got that one. You know, and that's a late end CIB or something like that. I don't know, but I guess it kind of runs counter to the topic of they all don't matter anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, it's all the same shit.
So what do you remember about the mission that you got your real CIB?
Okay, so I think it was my second mission with you guys. We were doing a tree clearing operation. So great, cool, random.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Awesome idea.
So the idea, from what I understand, behind the tree clearing mission was to clear out areas where they may be setting up ambushes or hiding caches, or they wanted to pretty much eliminate any kind of overhead cover. Yeah. So the birds could see them, what they were doing, or the Peaches could see what they were doing. Yeah. So I think they were picking areas where the Peaches would look from Massamgar, and be like, oh, look at that area. That looks kind of shady. Like a lot of trees over there. Let's blow them up and open it up and make a giant field.
Right.
So yeah, we had the engineers out there, EOD guys, and they were trying real hard, but just in vain to get these trees to come down with explosives. So they had us out on a blocking position to the east.
Yes.
And we walked in probably, I'd say like half a click off the road.
Yeah, it was real short movement for us. Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For once, right?
Yeah, for once.
I think we were. What town were we near? Was that Sketcha?
Sketcha.
Yeah,
we were on the very north
edge of it.
So like, there's like north and south Sketcha. We were on the very north edge of North Sketcha.
The northwest edge of Sketcha.
It was right across from OP Mosque.
Yeah, we were maybe like 300-400 yards south of OP Mosque.
Yeah,
yeah.
And so we moved the squad through. We came up to like kind of a weird like intersection, but it was surrounded by walls and we couldn't like see anything. And our mission was to watch to the south and to the east to make sure no one rolled up on them while they were doing the tree clearing. So me and my bright idea was, hey, like there's a roof up there. Like, hey, Sergeant Bally, you think it'd be a good idea if I took my squad up there, up to the roof? He was like, yeah, sure. So up we go. I go up to the roof of this grape hut, and I'm thinking like there's going to be like, what is it, one of the parapet
like
walls?
A parapet up there.
Yeah, just some kind of barrier, because it looked like there was. And as soon as we got up there, it was nothing. It was flat.
Yeah.
And
not only was it flat, but it sloped down towards.
Yeah, it sloped down like towards the wilderness out there and the grape rows and everything.
It's like if you were standing on the ground, you could look up and you could see us. Even if we're laying down, you could see us entirely.
I remember looking up and seeing like the upper half of Curtis's body.
Mm-hmm. And it just totally, I mean, I'll take blame for that one 100%. Super bad idea. Definitely a learning experience.
It was a good idea. It was an idea we used a lot later.
It's a good idea on paper. But when I got up there, I should have been like, no, let's get out of here. But I figured, because I didn't really know how it was. I heard stories and you hear how things are, but you don't really know until you're there.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so you get the first experience. So the bullets start flying past more regularly, and then you kind of get a feel for what's a good idea and what's not a good idea. I was brand new, I had a deployment, but nothing like that happened ever. Right. I used to stand on roofs in Baghdad and woo, just take pictures, cool, the city in the background. And so we're up on the roof, and I was kind of back behind you guys a little bit. Curtis was there.
Yeah.
Curtis was my saw gunner. We had Perez was a rifleman. He was carrying an AT-4, and Pfeiffer. So Pfeiffer's up there. Pfeiffer
on the lower part were me and Holt, and this was my one and only fabled combat dump.
Yes, yeah, I've heard the story. I heard you were letting it rip.
I was pitching a loaf down there in the grape rows, and I said it was one of those things that was unique to our deployment. I wonder. It's because if a guy took a piss or was taking a shit, it was almost guaranteed that within minutes or seconds you would take contact.
Mine was lighting a cigarette. That was what happened every time for me. Every time we'd get done, it was always after a firefight. I would, we get done getting shot at, and everyone's like amped up. Reach in, you pull out that butt, you light it, and every time, as soon as I would do it, I would take one drag and just, God, shit. Like, how hard it is to get these things. These aren't pines or whatever they were. These are American. So you get all mad. You're like, shit.
So while I was pitching a loaf down there, you guys were, what happened up top on the roof?
So they were all on the prone. I was sitting on the top stair going up behind them because there wasn't any room for me to get down there with you guys. You guys were pretty, like, your feet were touching.
Yeah, it was real tight.
And I was kind of just watching what was going on, and I was keeping contact with you guys while also like kind of visual contact with down below us. Yeah. Just kind of seeing what everybody else was doing. And somebody, God, he was close. He was
about like 20, 30 meters.
If that, I would say, he was in a...
It was at the corner of a grape hut.
Yeah,
it was just across the road.
Mm-hmm.
like point blank range.
Yeah, it was close, and you could see the muzzle flashes and everything. Just the typical AK sound.
Sure.
The cracks and the whizzes, and it was pretty wild too, because we had no cover up there.
Nothing.
So these rounds were. I don't think he had the best shot on us, which was probably really good.
I don't think
he was shooting right over you guys, and then he was hitting the wall, like right in front of you guys. But it was like he was hitting the corner of the wall, so it was spraying dirt up, like up over the grape hut. The rounds were coming over. We all started shooting. Me being a dum-dum, I'm just shooting my M4, and Sergeant Ott's like, shoot your 203. So I start, loading those in there and shooting those. Because, it's your first firefight, private or sergeant, it's a shocking feeling to be shot at in anger.
Yeah.
And then return fire. It's like,
what can I do? What am I allowed to do?
Exactly.
Here? Yeah.
And I felt like I had that because my first deployment, I don't know how your rack deployment was. There was a lot of rules. It was very strict. You're not allowed to do this. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't look at a cow's ass on Thursday. It was like super specific, like what you can and can't do. Mm-hmm. And you go to Afghanistan, it's just like, Wild West. You get shot at, you shoot back. Like that's it. And like it was almost like, you get used to it quick, but at first it was like, oh, am I gonna get in trouble? Like, am I allowed to shoot 40 Mike?
Right.
Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that? But in the course of that firefight, we were firing. Perez is laying up there, and I yelled at Perez. I'm like, shoot the AT4. Shoot the AT4. And he pulled it out, and I don't know if he didn't hear me or what, but he just passed it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I'm like, well, I'm not passing up that opportunity.
Yeah.
So thank you. I'm like, you sure? All right, cool. So I took it, got to shoot the AT. So it's cool first firefight story. No one got hurt.
Yeah.
Got to shoot AT4. Shot a bunch of 203s.
Nothing to the grape hut.
Oh, nothing. Yeah,
nothing.
It was just fun.
It was a direct hit too.
Bucket
so
list.
to our friends in the comments,
gave that dude a good concussion. He's probably got some good TBI.
I puckered his butthole a little bit.
But to our friends in the comments who have been telling us that the AT4 is as good as the Goose,
it's not.
You're wrong. You're just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And 240 is not as good as the Goose in a firefight. You're just wrong. A 240 on that rooftop would have done nothing. You're just jealous you never got the Gustav.
You're just jealous
I said it.
The Goose.
Yeah. So you guys, you sir, are a huge fan of Gustav. I like the Gustav, but forever my favorite weapon ever from that deployment is 203.
Yes,
hands down.
I'll give you that.
Hands down.
It was.
I think we used that more than anything. I think I fired more like 40 millimeter rounds. I did 5.56.
I know for a fact that's not true for me.
No, man.
I shot thousands of rounds.
We used it a lot, and it was good, man.
Mm-hmm.
We did some good because you could get in above them, which was a hard thing for us to do.
It was the death blossom.
Yeah.
You take contact from a certain direction, you dump like 30, 40 Mike on it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. And that usually did the work, at least temporarily.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember, we were going through 40 millimeters so fast.
We ran out.
Our parent battalion.
Real quick. For people who aren't military, they're listening. A 40 millimeters and a 203 is a grenade launcher that is attached to the bottom of the barrel of your rifle, and it shoots a 40 millimeter grenade, like literally lobs it and explodes. So sorry, continue.
Military history with Luke.
We had M320s too, but I opted for the NOM style.
Yeah,
I opted for the 203 because
the 320s were clunky and awkward.
Hated them. They were terrible. I don't know why people loved them so much. They were awkward.
I think people like them because in their mind they're like, I can take this off my gun and shoot it, as if they were ever going to be allowed to do that.
Yeah, and I know some people did, but like, look, we had one dude that did it, and he split his face open.
Yeah,
because he was doing this, and he shot it, and it whack.
Yeah,
split his lip.
So
open,
it's designed to be. That's a launcher. It's actually designed to be not fired on the weapon, but it can be put to a weapon. I don't know. Yeah. It wasn't perfect. Anyway,
if my memory serves me correctly, we were forced to put the 320s on the guns because Kitching was worried that we'd be lazy fucks and not bring them with us for some reason.
He's probably onto something there.
He probably wasn't very wrong because someone would have forgot it, Where's your 203?
Somebody in group would have been like, I didn't want to pack it with me.
It's
too heavy. Yeah.
I can think of several people in first that would have forgotten it too.
Where did it go? Oh God.
Yeah, that's honestly that's probably the real risk.
Yeah, could you imagine not
forgetting to bring it, but forgetting to bring it back?
I would hate to be on the other end of that.
Just set it on the ledge on top of a freaking compound. And, sketch it and get halfway back to Sperwan Ghar and be like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You make a good point.
We were blasting through 40 millimeter grenades for
Yeah.
203 launcher so fast, or 320 launcher, so fast that our parent battalion, who was supposed to be taking care of us, giving us our ammunition, giving us food, giving us support, said, we don't believe you. We're not going to send you anymore because there's no way that you're shooting
And
that much 40 millimeter.
Do you remember what we ended up doing?
We told General Abrams about that.
Oh, this is before that.
And then he got us a whole bunch. He flew a Black Hawk to us the next day.
So we actually had that problem. I don't know if you remember. We had that problem earlier in deployment.
Did we?
And they said the same thing. They wouldn't give us more. And we were walking around. And I remember I brought up, we were doing something. I think we were going to CAF or something one day. And I asked Sergeant Ott, I was like, hey, like, well, let's stop by the district center. Because, you know, I know everybody there.
Yeah.
And they have a bunch and they never use it. So I remember we went there and we grabbed like a couple cases.
Yeah.
A couple cans of it. So I know that was one way we got it there. And then I think we got some more from the SF compound too. I think they gave us some because we went to go get more Gustav rounds too.
Yeah,
and
the
they were
ODA
like, oh, I need that. And
ODA was really good about taking care of us.
they were
Yeah,
awesome.
man,
And every time you'd go over there and to pick up more ammo or whatever, they would like chat you up and how's it going, man? Like, you know, how's this? How's that? You know, what's going on over there?
What can
and,
we do to help?
Like, do you guys need anything? Like, we got ammo and stuff. We got this. We got that. Like,
some sodas.
yeah, anything. You know, they were more than willing to help because, like, one of the weapons sergeant there, I talked to him pretty frequently, like at the district center, after the district center, and he was very like sympathetic to what we were doing because he had a previous deployment to where they were kind of in our shoes. They got dropped at a cop and they were like, go get Taliban dudes.
Yeah.
And he did that the whole deployment. So he knew what we were going through and he could see probably in our faces, like, just like how exhausted we were, you know, from dealing with that every day, like day in, day out. So they were very sympathetic to what we were going through up there.
Yeah.
Then also it's Sperwan Ghar. It's like
it's iconic for them.
yeah, it's an ODA, like kind of, it's a big deal because they went through some shit taking that base.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of ownership
Yeah.
with Sperwan Ghar associated with the Special Forces.
Absolutely.
teams.
I mean, and to anybody who hasn't read the book, I mean, read Lions of Kandahar. That book is insane.
Yeah,
It's nuts what
crazy.
them and the Canadians did. It's insane. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It makes what we did look like just eating cheesecake.
Well, they
you know?
fought like a Vietnam style battle. Hey, take Hill 364.
Yeah,
And there's thousands of dudes defending it.
Counterattack.
You know, like
1,000 net Taliban.
it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah,
And you know,
absolutely
and
nuts.
a lot of the average person doesn't even know about that.
Yeah.
You know, that they think that we're out there, you know, fighting, you know, a guerrilla or something. They were fighting like very well trained,
battle.
like battle hardened dudes, you know, so that was a tough fight.
Yeah.
you know. So you said very iconic to the SF community. So I think
absolutely.
that's why they cared so much.
I think, yeah. And also, I think, you know, they kind of wished that they were doing what we were doing because their mission set at the time was nowhere near as kinetic. You could tell when they actually got to go on a patrol, they were so stoked just to be outside.
Well, they were doing the more, what a lot of people don't know about special forces too, like their primary mission is to teach.
You're right.
It's a teach, you know, is to go in these countries, help the indigenous population resist whatever tyranny they're dealing with. And that's what they were doing, which is like, I mean, those does love to teach. I mean, how many classes did we go to with them?
Oh yeah, tons.
You know, I went to 3 with them and they were so cool. They were so eager to teach us stuff. They loved it. And they were great, man. It was such a great asset to have there. And they were so willing to share their knowledge and whatever they had with us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Shout out to those guys.
The Gustav class.
Yeah.
yeah. Shout out for the 18 Delta for helping me so many times.
Yeah.
Whoever you are, I don't know your name, but you're the man.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that really does kind of like wrap up that mission, that first firefight that we went to. I mean, it
was short lived, you know.
It was short lived, but I mean, there was a little bit of everything in that one. You know, there was AT4s, there were 40 millimeter grenades, combat dumps, you know, people getting their CIVs, new guy curse. It was the first time we took the new guys out on a dismounted patrol.
And that stuck true through the whole deployment.
It did.
Hard. Every time you get someone new, you just knew, you're like, when's it coming?
Yep.
When's it coming? It's going to happen.
I can't think of a single time we took it was somebody's first dismounted patrol and nothing happened.
Once.
Who?
Lloyd.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Lloyd was weird, and it freaked me out because I remember every time we got someone new, you know, Tallman, Roberts, all those dudes. Every time we got someone new, it was like first thing was
day.
before you even get settled in, let's go out and get a firefight real quick. The Taliban knew, they were like, oh, they got a new guy. Let's go break him in, you know. And they but with Lloyd, it was weird. And it was like weeks. I remember because we had a little lull. Remember, like in the summer, we had like a 2-week lull. It was very strange. I think they were ripping in, ripping out new Taliban guys or something.
Probably. Gotta fill the shirt.
Yeah, they were on their mid-tour leave.
Right.
In Waziristan.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember going out and just being like, getting nervous, like, oh, come on.
Well, it almost feels like it's building, right?
Yeah,
it's like the longer it doesn't happen, the worse it's going to be.
It's almost like when someone has like a slap bet with you, and they're just holding it over your head, and you're just like, oh, like just do it, man, get it over with. And that's what it felt like, you know. It's like, but it went on like that for 2 weeks, and it was like, dude, it was just weighing on me so heavily. And when we finally got it out of the way, I was like, oh, thank God. You know, which is a weird thing to say when you get shot at, but you know, because it was scary because you're thinking like, what is this building up to? Like, is this going to be like some crazy, like fighting off the hordes? I'm like, you know, run out of ammo and throwing rocks at people or something, you know, it's scary. But
it's interesting you mentioned that because you're kind of jogging my memory. Like I'd forgotten about what that was like.
Yeah.
When there would be these lulls. And I feel like we rarely went more than 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 weeks at most.
Yeah.
Without a firefight. So when, I forgot that when there would be a couple weeks and we didn't see any contact, we would start to wonder like what's coming, you know, like it was this weird ominous feeling that we were going to walk into like a 20-man ambush one day or something, which never really happened, but it was just.
Well, especially when it was like a company-wide lull. Like it'd be different like if our squad just went like a certain number of patrols without running into something, but we still heard that, third got into something or second got into something. We're like, okay, well, you know, we're just whatever. But when they're like, no, it's been quiet. Like you know, the Afghans are really willing to go out with us. And like, we're like, what is going on?
But it's weird too. Cause it's like, excuse me, it's almost harder, you know, cause you're kind of in that rhythm of we're going to go out, we're going to get shot at, we're going to shoot back, we're going to come back. And then when it stops after a while, you kind of get out of that groove, you know?
Yeah.
And then I think I felt more anxious about going out when we didn't get shot at for a while. Because then like, what's going on? Like, and then you really start thinking about it. Then you're like, what if this happens? Or what if that happens? Yeah. Whereas like you're just used to the constant, we're going to this town. Okay. We're probably going to get like right around here. We're probably going to get shot. You know, like,
right around the magical tree line, 500 meters to the east of Sperwan Ghar.
Yeah. And I think it's just kind of the unknown, you know, because it's like you don't really know what's going on because this was weird. Are they building something big, or am I going to get complacent and do something stupid? And you know,
I mean, and also like once you got into that firefight on a patrol, you're like, okay. I mean, unless it was like a weird day, like low crawl day, which we'll talk about soon. You know, usually you got one good fight on a patrol, and then you're like, the birds came overhead and the birds shot or something happened, and like, hey, they're running off. You're like, okay, we're probably good the rest of the day now.
Yeah,
for the most part.
For the most part, yeah.
No, not always true. Especially if you're on your way back. If you're like out in a gunfight and you're on your way back, you're like, we're free.
Probably good, except for like 1 or 2 times.
Yeah, but to not take one at all, but to constantly be inspecting it, be like,
yeah. It's like you wonder what's going on.
But
for sure.
Well, for our listeners, we have made the editorial decision to make Tom Evans' episode a 2-parter. And next week, we're going to talk about 2 really iconic missions from the deployment. One is going to be, we've referred to it as Low Crawl Day several times. That's going to be a pretty heavy Luke and Tom discussion because I was mostly a spectator for that one.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll go into detail on that one because that's a great. That day is indicative of what it was like to fight in Panjwai.
Yes, it really was.
You know,
absolutely.
like it's the case study for fighting in Panjwai.
Yeah, and then also we'll talk a good bit about Throat Chop.
Yeah,
which is very similar in terms of it was very indicative of what it was like to fight in Panjwai, but also because, as we mentioned before, it's kind of the penultimate mission for that deployment, and it's also where Tom's story in Panjwai ends. So we wanted to make sure we dedicated a proper amount of time to talking about those 2 experiences, and not try to drag this out for 3 hours. So to our listeners, we appreciate you hanging out, and I don't know, kind of closing thoughts to close this one out. What do you guys got?
Stay tuned for the inaugural Gustav shot by yours truly.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
story
there we
of
go,
the
yeah.
first Gustav shot.
When I cemented my status
did.
as the legendary Gustav gunner for
was.
the rest of the deployment.
You
Get
were.
your Vaseline ready.
I'm still waiting to hear the story about the one finger in the ear and the one hand on the Gustav.
We talked about that in Phil's episode.
Did you?
So you're a little bit
Oh,
behind.
did I miss that one? I missed that part of it.
Yeah, it's at the end. You have to
man.
re-listen. You're a terrible guest,
know,
not
I'm
even
awful.
listening to the
Sorry.
podcast.
I did listen to all of them except for prices, okay?
All right, well, we're not even going to continue until Tom catches up on the podcast.
I'll
so.
see you guys in about 4 months.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week.